Hello there, you beautiful soul. Welcome back to another Culture Talk segment with your host and founder of Cultured Society. My name is Rebecca Munoz, and I am here with another special and beautiful guest today to talk about life philosophies, experiences, culture, and all things soul work. I am so excited because these conversations that have been had this past year have been so relevant in this new time that we're stepping into today and every day moving forward. If you have not had an opportunity to join us on these conversations, there's a variety of colorful and soul-filled guests that are walking through these doors every week to talk about their life experiences and pretty much everything that has brought them to this place that they stand in today. So we are diving deep into the minds of these guests to reveal all the experiences that really have just brought so much revelation and healing, transformation, and everything in between. And right now, we are living in a time where we really need these conversations. We really need the opportunity to create space for us to share our stories, to be able to up-level each other, and to be able to continue to do this healing work that is going to up-level our humanity, to expand us in ways that are going to allow us to continue to walk in our divine purpose, because each and every one of us has one. So today I am here with Lovenia, Coach Love Barkley. And Lovenia is a certified master life coach, author, and speaker who specializes in creating safe spaces for men to be enlightened, encouraged, empowered, and elevated through their HEARTWORK journey. Lovenia has such a compassionate heart for people, which is why she purposefully became an entrepreneur. She is intentional in utilizing her phenomenal leadership and communication skills while sharing her heart with the world. She has co-authored 3 books and has self-published 2 books about heart work and healing for men. She believes we should all delve into self-love and the importance of healing our mental, emotional, and spiritual dimensions. Lovenia thoroughly enjoys collaborating with like-minded individuals and also immerses herself in philanthropy work. She regularly participates in forums focused on mental health and self-love. And Lovenia's mantra is, I am love. And she is steadfast in her mission to help others realize this truth for themselves. And this too is why she believes it takes more heart than talent to truly thrive in our journey. So with this, I introduce the beautiful Lovenia Barkley to this conversation of life philosophies, experiences, and cultures. So thank you so much for joining me today, Lovenia.
Hey, Rebecca, thank you so much for having me. This is such a phenomenal opportunity. You're such a beautiful light in the world, and I'm just thankful that we get to share this space together, even though it's virtually. You're doing such phenomenal work in the space of just creating a understanding that the world will do better, and we as individuals will do better if we're willing to heal ourselves and really create a space where we can work together collectively to be sure that we're all, at peace and joyful and having a thriving experience here. So I think what you're doing is phenomenal. And I'm just grateful that you're giving me the opportunity to share your space today.
Oh man, I am just so grateful and honored to be able to exchange energy with someone like yourself who is not only doing the healing work continuously within yourself, because like you mentioned in your bio, we have different dimensions within us, mentally, spiritually, physically, and it's all divinely connected. It's not just doing the physical work, right? There's so many components that create a transformation, and the transformation really happens within the heart first, and then it's an external expression of everything that's happening in our external world. So the more that we heal internally, the more we'll be able to transform the way that we perceive and experience the external world. So I'm so grateful to be able to sit here to have this conversation, this soulful conversation, because we need it so much more than ever before. So again, you have not had the time to join us on these conversations. Take the time to flow through the collective conversations and through the platforms that we have on aculturedsociety.com and on the Cultured Society YouTube channel. If you have not had an opportunity to subscribe, please do so as we continue to unfold these stories of people from all over the world that are doing amazing work, that are roaming this planet and exchanging energy, beautiful, loving energy with people around this planet. Because again, this is work that needs to continue to unfold. And these are conversations that continue to, well, we need to continue to have them for sure. So with this, I ask you, Lovenia, what is your life's philosophy?
My life's philosophy is always honor yourself first, foremost, and always. Like, no matter what your chosen goals or paths or assignments are in this physical realm, I truly believe that we're spiritual beings living in the human experience. So, in that space, just consider that despite everything you've learned, despite everything you've had to unlearn, that no matter what your intentions are, make sure that they just align in the space that will always honor the absolute most authentic character of your heart.
That that is so real. And it's so true. Oftentimes we don't even recognize that through our human experience, that we really, at the core of it, we're spiritual beings and we're a constant evolution. And how would you say that that philosophy has evolved for you through the years?
Oh wow. That evolution has been phenomenal. It's almost been like a out of body experience because, in your healing work, in your heart work journey, you know that it's for you, but there's a part of you that kind of views yourself outside of that. So it's like you get a chance to really honestly reflect back on yourself. So it's like you're having this mirror that's presenting yourself, but it's presenting everything about you, like in everything that's flawed about you, everything that's uncertain about you, all the contradictions about what you believe about yourself. But in that, you discover so much more about who you are, who you're really needing to show up as, and like how divinely aligned you are with everything that's already happened in your life. Like we hold on to the things that we've experienced already, and we're thinking like, there's some regret or there's some misinformation, maybe some misconception, sometimes some level of insecurity, and we think that like all of these things have happened to us. I've learned very clearly that every experience I've had was an experience that was happening for me. It was an opportunity for me to just catapult myself into the direction of what my actual purpose was. So it was like a thing where, like I said, I felt like I was actually watching myself become myself. And that's always beautiful because there's no I try to let myself just look at myself as open as possible. I don't like to keep myself attached to any of the unhealthy information or energy that's attached to those experiences that I may have viewed at some point as very negative. You have to take that information away from it so that you're allowing yourself to get the understanding about yourself without the conflict of judgment or, again, our preconditioning from culture, from society, from all the places that we're exposed to information about who we are or how we're supposed to show up for ourselves. So for me, it's been awesome. And it's something that because I started, it's something I want to continue.
It's okay. Yeah. These are recordings that are live. And so we allow whatever interruptions sometimes to just come through because this is real life, right?
Right,
And
right.
so,
The
so
phones bring the real life, guys.
yeah, no, it does. But so that's so true, Lavinia. And I completely resonate with what you are saying because through our experiences, oftentimes we tend to stay in a place of judgment and we don't allow ourselves to move forward but move forward in a way where we're continuously learning from the experiences that we're having, so that that can catapult us into a new dimension of time and to new perspectives. But it's so easy sometimes, especially with the noise that filters in through our society, through media outlets, through relationships, through all of that, to stay stuck in and stagnant in those experiences that we had that weren't always the best. So
Right.
do you or can you pinpoint a specific experience, or even like a specific time in your life where that really started to shift for you, that perception of, yeah, that philosophy?
Absolutely. I was in my late 20s, probably around 27, and my mom had made her physical transition. And that was like the first time where death meant it was time to like live like fully. Because I realized that now the one person that I had entrusted to guide me in this physical realm, they were no longer here. So now there's like all this conversation with myself. I'm struggling with spirituality. I'm struggling with the concept of what God is in my life. And I'm thinking like, this can't be what life is going to be like for me, like for however much longer I'm here. And in that, I realized like it's okay the experiences I've had. Like they all matter, but now there's this understanding that there's an opportunity for me to create something different for myself. So I realized I had to be the person that was actively participating in my evolution. I couldn't like just chill and be on the sidelines anymore. Like, okay, whatever's happening is just meant to happen. I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to make any effort to try to change this outcome at all. If you're a person that believes in the concept of like manifestation, I realized that even though I wasn't actively participating, I still subconsciously manifested everything that had happened in my life. So it's like, well, who do you get to blame for that? Nobody. And then when you're sitting there with yourself in that moment, you're thinking like, I don't really feel like I want to blame myself. I don't feel like there's a fault in this experience. This is just how life is. But the reality is that there is an opportunity for me to gain some reasoning. And I like to say that reasoning gives us understanding, because in our life experiences, there is no one to blame. There is no fault to be had. There's just this understanding that we have to be very intentional, but that is based on the premise of how healthy our heart is. Throughout our lifetime, our heart has been broken many times, and that will continue to happen. But the reality is, there's always an opportunity to put yourself back together. There's always this opportunity to evolve and become even better than you were the moment before now. Evolution is constant, like you shared already. So it was just this idea that, like, wow, this is real time. And now I have to do this myself. I can't, continue to rely on just the connections that I have with people that are physically here, because now I've expanded more in the way, honestly, since my mother has physically transitioned from this space, that I don't know would have happened if she was still here. So in that, because of that, I realized that the way I get to honor her and the experiences that I had with her is to do my hard work. And that's like, again, I'm wearing a shirt that's branded from this queen that I love named Javon Stewart. And she works in the space of personal development. But the mantra with her brand is no excuse today. So at some point, I realized there's no excuse today or tomorrow or any day of the week. You know how we're always saying, well, someday I'm going to do this. There's no excuse today for why I can't sit still and be in the moment with myself and allow myself just even a small, minute bit of evolution. Because the reality is there's something that's coming. The next moment is going to happen. Am I going to be prepared for that? The way I do that is to just allow myself to be present and to give myself grace, just no matter what the circumstances are, because that's the reality of what we have to do for ourselves. Otherwise, we're constantly stuck, like you said, in the space of feeling stagnant, feeling unfulfilled, feeling unhappy, feeling, like there's some sort of lack in the space of who we are, not realizing that part of evolution is this great opportunity of just not knowing. You have no idea. Be happy about that. Be excited about that. Because what comes is what builds your character. That's what mends the character of your heart.
Oh my gosh, there are so many like truthful nuggets of wisdom in there. And first and foremost, my condolences to you for losing your mother at such a young age, because I can imagine like how difficult that transition was for you, especially losing the person who birthed you into this experience. But what a gift to be able to look at that experience from a higher perspective and to recognize that we are spiritual beings living a human experience, and that our life is borrowed. Even our parents, right? The ones who birthed us into this experience are borrowed. And so it is so important for us to embrace every single moment that we have with these people that are borrowed, and that we can allow them to transition when it's time for them to transition, and that their soul is always present with us. The memories that we have with them are always present, and that we can utilize those experiences as ways to, you know what, I'm still here, and I'm going to utilize this time that I still have here to honor those people that I love the most, because I know that if they were here, your mother, if she was still here, she would be honoring you and everything that you're doing today. And that's so beautiful, Lovenia. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's so important for us to continue to do this heart work every single day, even through our heartbreak. Our heartbreaks, because those are the catalysts, those are the experiences that are, again, catapulting us into a greater understanding and greater opportunity to do the work, the soul work that we're brought here to do. Now, how has your upbringing and circle of influence impacted the way that you think and live today?
Ha ha. I love that you said circle of influence, because I speak about that a lot, and I teach from that space of the impact that our primary circles of influence and our secondary circle of influences have on us. And for me, definitely, the influence I received in my life from my dad. My dad was a single parent; he raised me, um, and just seeing the nuances of him, just, you know, in the best way that he possibly could, evolving as a man, but also finding ways to evolve as a father. Because I was like, I'm what they call, country folks call, the second to last baby a knee baby. So basically, that means there are some other children before me and some other children that came after me. And by the time I came along, there had been some experience with raising girls, and but it was different just because the time was different. Like, there's a at least a decade of the age gap between me and my next sibling. So the reality was that, like, the things that may have worked for them didn't necessarily work when it was time to raise me. Because I'll share a little bit of my story. My birth mother, so when you said birth, I thought that was unique, because the woman that I referred to as my mom that transitioned when I was 27, she did not actually birth me. She's a woman that in some space she virtually decided. She started out as my mentor. I met her when I was like 10 years old. And at some point, we just conditionally adopted each other. But she raised me and she helped rear me. I would say guide me. I don't like to say the word, because you can't really raise people. Like, you raise livestock, you don't raise people, right? You, but you're allowed to be a very phenomenal guide for people in this physical realm. And she did a wonderful job, even though she didn't actually literally birth me. But the person that I call my birth mother, my vessel of love and light, that's the person that physically brought me into this space. She suffered with a lot of trauma. And because of that, she made some choices in her life to sort of soothe the pain that she had. And because of that, that's how my father was just like abruptly interjected into my life. And he was deciding, okay, I got to take this on. I'm going to do what I can to, like, bring this wonderful little girl into a space where she's comfortable here, despite everything that's happened to her. So everything I experienced with my father, and up until this day, he's 73 years old now. I'm 41. The experience has been phenomenal, because I like to say that his impact has made it so that I feel like my ruffles are more blue than pink, because there's something unique to be said about the way fathers interact with their daughters. Every person, you can be a parent by default. That's the nature. That's how God created us. There's a possibility to create life. But not every person that's chosen to be a parent has the character to carry that role, right? So I was thankful that when my father was introduced to me, that he was prepared to be a father. But in that, he also was prepared to be a dad. And yes, there's a difference. He was allowing himself to be as present as he possibly could, And he was very active in that. So we got to see the evolution together of what it meant to be a family, even though the dynamic looked different from everyone else's. So that definitely impacted me. Having an older brother, having uncles, having cousins, having coworkers. I'm now a mom, I guess, hashtag boy mom, because that's a thing now. I have a son. Um, and just those experiences of the really special, intimate moments I've had with every boy or man that I've known, like, and trusted and loved in my lifetime has definitely made an impact on how I got to this space. But if you were asking me as the human person, would I have chosen this path? Absolutely not. So I know that this is a divine assignment because based on my own personal traumatic experiences with men as a child, this is not what I would have planned for my life, you know? So I'm thankful for this thing that is called hard work because had I not done that, I certainly would not be doing the work that I'm doing today.
Oh man, I thank you so much for sharing that because it's really, it's so important for us to really dive deep and reflect on our entire life history in order for us to get to this place that we are today and to catapult into the work, the soul work that we're supposed to be doing, because sometimes it's so hard. There was a conversation that I had last week with this woman who lives in London, and we were talking about how as humans, we don't really recognize that we, before coming into this human experience, signed a soul contract. And through this human experience, it was really our job to uncover what that soul contract was. And
Exactly.
literally, it's like when we came through the birthing canal, our memories were wiped clean. And
Right.
we question the experiences that we go through and the heartaches and the pains and the trials and tribulations and just like a lot of the dark experiences that we go through. But in reality, that is so divinely connected to our soul contract. And so
Absolutely.
until we realize that is when we can really dive in and walk into the purpose that God has bestowed over our lives. And
Absolutely.
this is definitely evidence that you have uncovered that. And even though you're still uncovering that every single day, it's important for us to continue to track that work through
Yes.
our evolution and to be able to dissect, to be able to share the way that we're doing here today, because that's the way that we're going to be able to help people uncover what their soul work is, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You said it well.
Okay. It's so good. So do you believe that your line of work infects our society with positivity?
Absolutely. Um, because if it didn't, I promise you I wouldn't do it. The goal, one thing we forget, like you said, is that once we're here in the physical realm, we're here not for ourselves. We're here to be fully of service to others. But that's almost impossible to do if we don't do our hard work. So the only goal is to, like you said, we're outside of the soul contract. I believe is that the only other piece that we're born into this physical realm with is the innate ability to know what love is. Think about that. When you're born, you're innately able to be happy and joyful and positive. You're a baby, but there's something about the energy that emanates from you that the only thing you know as a child is love, right? We're taught later what hate means, what dislike is, what discomfort, what unhealthy things are. But that's through your conditioning and your education and experiences. But the reality is we're here to be the light. So it's not like a choice. The choice is only that are you feeling like you can take on the task of that? Because that means you have to allow yourself to evolve. That means you have to do, I like to say that hard work is the absolute hardest work you're ever going to do in your lifetime because you're spending your entire physical time here in this realm, as you said, reverting back to what you once were. So again, we're born in the space of love. We lose that because of the experiences we have, because of our circles of influence, right? Because of our conditioning, because of culture, because of society, because of laws, because of things that are external that don't necessarily matter when you think about, like you said, the contract that God created for you. And people are always saying, so what comes first in your life? I said, after what I understand to be God, I come first because that's my assignment. God entrusted me to be here in this physical realm to do exactly what was already predestined for me to do. Again, like you said, we're spending our lives navigating back to the how to. What's the proper way to do this? What's the best way to do this? What's the most positive and most light work way to do this? Because I like to say that I believe that I'm a light worker. The goal at the end of the day is that there has to be light. But the reality is that you don't realize or recognize the power of light unless you've experienced darkness. The same way we don't
Mm,
recognize the power of truth until we've had to deal with the consequence of telling a lie, right? So there's always this nuance of what's here, what's right, what's wrong, but there's so much gray in between. The gray is the part where we're figuring it out, right? Because we don't know what we don't know. But it's important that we allow ourselves to figure it out. And I like to say that everything's figure outable because we have so many resources. We have this wonderful thing that people like to call technology. So there's no way for us not to figure it out because we literally have answers at our fingertips at any moment of the day. And even if you don't, if you're a person that is a person that believes in taking the time out to create a very divine relationship with what you believe to be God, then in your spiritual work, you're going to find the information. It's going to be divinely sent to you. So you have a way to get it, regardless whether it's in an internal space or an external one. There again, there's no excuse today for why we can't be positive, for why we can't love ourselves enough to just do the hardest work that we have to do and recondition and mend the character of our heart back to love so that we can do what we're assigned to do here in this space.
that's good. That's good. I'm going to actually go into the next question because I want to go deeper into this. But do you believe that the work that you do every day is aligned with your calling and higher purpose? And was there a specific age that really clicked for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely again believe again, like there was no way I would have found this without the divine intervention of it. But the age when I really realized it was it, I'm 41. This is only coming to fruition in like the last 5 to 6 years of my life. So I would say like mid 30s.
Yeah.
Um, where people are like, how are you so comfortable in it now? I said, but I have so much information that I've archived my entire life. The
Yeah.
difference now is I'm in a space to understand that the information I have to share, the energy I have to emanate into the world, it has to be organized. It has to be relatable. And it has to be, like you said, it has to be from a space of love because otherwise I'm not honoring the contract, right? I'm not honoring, the angels that I call my moms, I call them my forever angels. I'm not honoring, the ancestral information that's been given to me for me to continue the work that I have to do here. So I wouldn't do it, like I said, if it was just left to me, just left to Lovey, the person that's living here in this physical space. Was there an exact age? Yes, I would say at 35 when I did this thing that people like to say is like a signal that you might be going crazy. I cut all my hair off. And I allowed myself to have like this little piece in the front that just is enough to have a bang. And they were like, what's happening? You've never done that. Like, why would you cut your hair? That's like a thing. When you have long hair or you have a lot of hair and you cut it as a woman, that's like this signal, like, okay, she's about to do something crazy. But for me, it was the first time I allowed myself to disconnect for everything that was external, just to realize that none of it mattered, right? Because we hold so many things that are outside of ourselves as something that's of value and like it's more valuable than what we have to offer as the individual person, right? So I was like, oh, I don't need this hair. Then suddenly I felt all this freedom. I felt this just idea that it's meant for me to be something else other than what everybody thinks I should be. And then in that I just was finding that I was having really unique experiences with men in my life, with my son at that time, and just in life. And it made sense that, like, okay, there's a reason this stuff is happening. My heart is breaking into a million pieces every day, and I need to know why this is happening. So in that moment, I didn't know why it was happening, but I understood that it was a reason for it. So I just allowed myself to be present in it. But then life is still happening, right? I still have to raise my son. I still have to go to work every day. I still have to do all these other things where there's no space for me to really, sit and process what's happening. But there was always something just kind of like, I wouldn't say nagging, but there was always something that was kind of like just tapping me on the shoulder, like, listen, Pay attention to this, because this information is something you're going to utilize at a later time. So when that happened, fast forward to now, these last couple of years of my life as an entrepreneur, and I'm like, oh, this is what that was for. Okay, everything you've documented, like I like to say to people, I've taken some very copious notes. I'm a phenomenal note taker because I love being a student of everything that matters in the space of love, light, understanding, and peace, and honesty, and all those things. So I'm always taking notes. Even if I don't write it down, there's always this mental note that I'm taking. And the reason I do that is because I want to remember it, but there's always a note that our heart takes, right? And everything that resonates with your heart is always the things that are going to stay in your mind. People like to say, let's get your heart right. And I'm like, no, get your mind right. That's always the thing. Let's focus on your mental capacity. Let's focus on your mental space. But the reality is that everything that's happening in your mental, emotional space is directly aligned, and your spiritual space is always aligned to whatever energy or character is sitting within your heart. Always. Think about how devastated you feel when someone, quote unquote, breaks your heart. You think about that 24/7. But think about how wonderful it feels when your heart feels full, when your heart feels humbled by love and what love really is. Again, what are you doing? You're thinking about that 24/7. So it's never here first and then here. It's always here first and then here and everywhere else, right? So because of that, that's how I figured out, like, okay, no matter what's happening to you, no matter how much it hurts, no matter how much you don't understand, this is serving a really divine purpose. And don't try to figure that out now, because it'll make sense to you later. So yeah, it's been like really intentional the last like 5 years, 5 or 6 years. Is it hard? Heck yeah. Like, is it an emotional opportunity? Absolutely. Have I expanded just as a person? Absolutely. But the beautiful part about it is it feels so natural, because spiritually, this is what I was supposed to be doing anyway.
Yes. And thank you so much for sharing that, because you are so right. It is, there's a neuroscientist that I love to follow. His name's Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm sure you're familiar with him. But he talks about the heart and mind coherence, and that when you do have the mental capacity, typically it's a constant connection. And in fact, your soul really is like your midsection. It's your solar plexus, right? Your solar plexus is activated, your mind is activated, and your heart is activated. And you're constantly connecting all those components in your physical reality. And it's so uncomfortable. It
Yes.
is so uncomfortable. It is a discomfort that a lot of times people avoid, and we
Yes.
sedate, right? We sedate with outside substances because we refuse to look at ourselves directly and be like, if I don't do the work, then this work is not going to get done. But it's a very uncomfortable process. Typically, it usually happens once you start to get into your 30s, because by that time, you've had a series of experiences that you can reflect back on, and it gives you the opportunity to start asking yourself those serious questions. And you go into a very it allows you to be more wise, more sovereign in the experiences that you're having, and really always taking those experiences and reflecting them back to you. So why men? I mean, I know that you've had a series of experiences with men from an early age, but really what activated that desire to work specifically with men in this heart work?
Oh, this is the human part of my experience. I realize there's such a lack of resources and support and just understanding. Um, there's such an unhealthy narrative around what it, quote unquote, means to be a man. And I just wonder, like, who had the assignment to say that this is what manhood is supposed to look like? Who created these rules that says that men don't require the level of support or energy or information that we as women believe we deserve? Who said that? I don't know, but they suck, because the reality is there's no place in this physical realm or anywhere beyond here where man doesn't matter, right? But they're charged to be and do so much. Like, even though we as women are like kicking doors in every day and breaking glass ceilings, the energy of this world is charged that men are requested to be leaders, right? But where is the reinforcement? Where is the foundational support to give them the capacity to do what in this space they're being charged to do? I think that's so unfair. So just again, this is the human part of me saying like, oh, I'm going to do something about this because I don't like it. And then I realized that, you know how they say, only complain if you're going to complain to someone that can do something about it. God said to me, you can do something about that. So yeah, what happens as far as the human part? Yeah, I'm like thinking like, I'm having all these human exchanges about it. But the reality is also too that God is saying this is your assignment. And I've gotten to the space in my life and in my experience where it's important for me not to be disobedient. Right. So we hear people talk about that across every religion, across every part of what they understand about God and awareness and being here in the likeness of this really powerful energy that's well beyond anything we can truly fathom, right? um when that happens, you realize that, okay, this is your purpose, these are the things that are aligned with that. And there's a very beautiful thing that God has gifted us wonderful women with, um that allows us to be the light that helps men harness that power to really have control over what it is that they physically have to do in this space. But we also have a really unique power that we can also be the guide to teach them how they can tap into who they are. Because it matters to me that every man can do a thing, right? There's no doubt about that. A man can do anything, but it needs to be an opportunity for men to allow to be anything, right? Every individual man should be allowed to be as natural in his being as the character of his heart allows. Society and culture doesn't allow that, but we have to talk about why that doesn't exist. We have to talk about our role as women in this physical realm with these men. When we talk about masculine energy and feminine energy, there's a reason that exists. We have to respect that. We have to give ourselves the space and the grace to understand that and to utilize the energy that we have to harness a better physical realm for all of us, because we still have to share this space whether we like it or not. My thought is, if I can be the person that speaks to this or that creates a different narrative or does this work, there's an opportunity for this information and energy to emanate from the inside out, right? The goal is that there's going to be this ripple effect where it's not going to just be me as an individual. There'll be another wonderful woman named Rebecca. There'll be every other person you've interviewed in this space. There'll be someone that this information that will connect to, that'll be willing to collectively get us all into this space of where we're doing our hard work. But I think it's very imperative, just like you said, because of the nature of the state of the world this physical realm is in. If we don't collectively agree that this needs to be done, and that there needs to be this understanding that men require every bit of support and beyond in the space of their mental, emotional, and spiritual health, there will never be a time when the world is not in chaos. And people don't like to understand that everything's possible. Nothing is impossible if you're looking at it from the spiritual space. But what we have to do in the physical realm as humans, we have to collectively agree that we understand what's possible, because that's the only way we'll do the work. We won't do it as long as we're in denial. We won't do it as long as we're deflecting, our energy and saying that I don't have to be the person to do this. Why do I have to care? Someone has to care. And as a person, where I like to say that I am love, but the reality is the first four letters of my name spell love. I have to emanate that. It's not up to me to make that optional anymore. So if we don't just collectively agree that love really means that we accept, we understand, that we collectively work together, then we can change the possibilities for all of us. But we have to include men in that conversation. And there's not enough opportunity for that. It's not happening enough. Like you said at the beginning, it needs to happen more. So if I'm just starting it, awesome. But I'm starting it in a way that it'll make sense for the next person to continue it.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Lavinia. I really appreciate your words. I appreciate your experiences. And I appreciate the fact that you're going first, right? Because when God instills this vision and this desire in your heart for you to do this work, oftentimes you're the one that has to do the work first. You have
Right.
to take responsibility, right? Like you have to take responsibility for oftentimes your own personal traumas, your
Yeah.
experiences that you've gone through, not victimizing yourself for the
Right.
experiences that you were assigned to go through in the beginning, right? Because all of it is divinely connected to your purpose. And the more
Yeah.
that we victimize ourselves, the less time we could spend actually doing this soul work that is going to impact the people around us. And it's
Right.
not so much about impacting the entire world, although the work that we do from a personal level impacts our personal world in the energetic fields that we surround ourselves in. But then it goes a little bit further because it's almost like a domino effect. Like right now, I'm in New Mexico, Lovenia's in South Carolina, and we're in two completely different networks. So the work that we're doing right now is going to expand into different audiences because this is
Right.
what the virtual world is supposed to be about. We're not supposed to
Right.
utilize these media platforms to spread viruses of
Right.
negativity. We're
Right.
supposed to spread the virus of love, which infects
Absolutely.
people with so much positivity. And, we have to be realistic, right? Because
Right.
we can say, oh, be positive all day long. No, we really do have to look at our situation as a way to be able to transmute the negativity, but through actually stepping through the negativity because we live in a duality filled world. But it really is our perception of what's happening that is going to allow that darkness to turn to the light that is going to allow people to really shift their perspective of what is happening.
Yeah. You said it. That had to happen for me first. You're absolutely right. I remember the first time, again, honest reflection. If you guys haven't read the book is formatted in the what I call the circle of forgiveness. Reflection is the first part of that, right? And it has to be honest. For me, the really like, oh my gosh, like get your life together was I realized that had actually my name was like love. Like I've known that all my life. I've been writing it all my life on paper. But there was this moment when I realized when my mother transitioned that I was like, you so don't emanate that. How can you be called that? And that's not what you're emanating out into the world. And then you're wondering why life is the way that it is. So it's like, you can't be that. Now there's like this thing, where people are saying like, we hear people say all the time, like, now the word I guess people like to use is it's trending. What is it? Imposter syndrome. Um, that's what they're calling it now. But for me back then, it was just like this awakening of like, oh my gosh, like you really aren't that. So it wasn't a thing where like I could change my name and it would just change my life, or it would had to be something that was going to make sense. And it was like, so what are you going to do to be loved, and how are you going to do that? What does that look like? And the first thing was just again making a decision to be honest with myself, because one thing that's scary about doing hard work, like you said, it's gonna wow, it's gonna really tear you apart in more ways than one. But the beautiful thing about the culmination of what happens as you're piecing yourself back together, you want to discover more of who you really are. You want to
Yes.
discover, because in that space where I needed to do my hard work, I that's when I really discovered what God is, right? And I always say God is love. I'm happy to say that I can now say my heart is absolutely full and humbled by love, because I now know what that means. But that came through discovery of myself and what God is. People like to think that there's this way to avoid finding that. Everyone that tells you that there's this, that doesn't exist, that's not real. They've never been on a path of true self-discovery. They've never had honest reflection with themselves. Reflection is the beginning of it all. Like, because if you can't look at yourself and make some notes and take some notes and gain some clarity or some understanding, there's not much you're going to be able to do in the space of you're connecting to other people or connecting to the energy that you need to create more light in the world, right? It's never fully about me, but in that moment, it had to be, because I was not the person then that I needed to be to do the work that I'm being asked to do, right? And rather than cower and say, well, I just won't do the work, I'll just find something to soothe me, whether it was going to be food or sex or drugs or alcohol. I knew I didn't want any of those external things because I've been a witness to what those things do to people. And I was like, I don't want to feel that bad. Like, I don't feel great, but I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to look like what that actually looks like. I don't want to have to let people see that. So my thought was, okay, you've got to really take some time with yourself. And I spent years and years just really reflecting on who I was. And I realized that the reason I didn't emanate love was because I was hurting. I had been traumatized repeatedly for years and years and years. And that's what happens to every man that's walking in this space with us. They're traumatized. There's never a space to breathe, to pause, to recall, to process. There's never any time for that. The world is like microwave time. Everything has to be right now, right now, right now. No one says sit still anymore. When I was growing up, people would say, have a seat, be quiet, sit still. Now everyone's just running, running, running. So there's never space for the growth, for the reflection. When you reflect honestly, though, that takes you into the next space of what's possible, because now you have to be honest, but now you have to take responsibility. The biggest part that's so hard about heart work is that part. People do not like the idea of what it means to be responsible and accountable for themselves.
Yeah.
They don't like it. It's too much work. It's too hard. It hurts too much. That makes sense though. If you've never had the understanding or the wherewithal, or no one's ever shared with you any wisdom to give you the awareness of what that means, it is very scary. It's always scary to attempt to do something you've never done. But in
Yeah.
that moment, for me, it was like, you have to do this, because if you don't do this, I don't know what the rest of your journey here is going to be like. If you want to stay here in this physical realm, you have to do something other than what you've been doing. And for me, that was a moment like, your name is love and you're not that. Like, you got to do something. I don't know what it's going to be, but this isn't it. So over time, again, now I can say I am love and it means something, because that's really what I am. And I have to consciously, don't get me wrong, I have to very consciously make that a choice though. Because in the human space of what we're doing here, that's what we have as humans. We have free will and choice. That's the freedoms we always have. It's really up to us, again, to be responsible and accountable to whatever our character of heart is in the moment, to say, I'm going to choose to be this. And you just keep making that choice, because there's coming a time when, as hard as it is, parts of that feel really good. And now you're having this experience that's different from all the pain you've endured in your life. And you're like, wait, this is possible. I don't have to always be in this state of constant trauma and chaos and turmoil. I like that. Oh, this is great. I want to do some more, right? And that's what brought me to this space that I'm in now. And that's what makes me always like, I'm digging in. I always call it the digging. I'm going to dig into some more into my story. I want to dig in some more into the truth, because we have to do that. The reality is that that's all heart work is really about. Feeling like that you have the courage, you have the faith in yourself and in what you believe to be God, that you will be able to sustain yourself in those moments when the responsibility of accountability is absolutely hard.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And that is so good. It's so good to be able to not only take responsibility for your own life and where you've come from, the decisions that you've made, and even sometimes the experiences that you were put in that weren't necessarily your fault, right? Because a lot of people, a lot of times our society is operating off of their own traumas. We're always projecting our own experiences into new experiences. And the only way that we're going to be able to change that is if we do the self-reflection, the self-analysis, and to operate from the heart. But there's no avoiding the pain that you're going to go through in order for you to do the healing work. And it's a constant evolution. I like to say that we never are going to arrive, because once we get to that place that we thought we were going to be the most content and happy at, right? And something else comes along. There's a saying that
Right.
says new devils create new devils, right? New
Right.
levels create new devils. And it's really your perception that shifts and you're able to close the gaps.
Right.
And also to recognize that the trauma doesn't reflect who you have to be today or who you're going to be tomorrow. It really
Right.
is just an experience that you needed to have in order for you to be able to create space for other people, because that's what it is. We when we go through our healing journey, we are
Right.
able to resonate with more people. We're able to authentically connect and just
Absolutely.
create space for people to share their stories so that they can heal, right? And we're constantly
Right.
uncovering parts of ourselves. We're literally peeling back the layers of the
All the
onion,
time.
right?
All the time. Yep. All the time. And you're peeling and steady crying and screaming and like, but you're like, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going. But it really is that way though. It really is that way.
Yes. And you know what? I'm so glad that you're doing this work with men, because there is this misconception that men have to be, and it starts because I've worked with children for many years, pretty much on and off throughout my career. And it's so interesting because I've worked with a lot of toddler boys. And it really is important and imperative as parents, even though I'm not a parent yet, but it really is imperative for us to recognize the importance of working with our boys from a very, very young age to
Yeah.
allow them the space to be able to be emotional, to be able
Yeah.
to cry and work through their emotions in a way where they're not shamed for it. Because
Mhm.
each and every single one of us, whether we're a female or a male, we all have the feminine and masculine energy within us.
Right.
And it's really important for us to recognize that as spiritual beings living a human experience, it's just the outer shell of being a man, right? Or being a
Right.
woman that
Right.
kind of
It's
separates
it's what
us.
you
But
just said. The human experience. Every human naturally has to respond in some way to their physical experiences here. That's what crying, that's what smiling, that's what all those things are. We have to kind of get away from that. We have to assign everything as boys are blue, girls are pink, or, you can play with a doll and you can't, or you should do housework and you should do hard work. Like everyone is human. These are natural responses for us to be able to endure what's happening to us in this physical realm. There's no shame in that. There shouldn't be an assignment of you can't do that. So I'm glad you're saying that, because my thought is this is a book I just shared yesterday that my son can read. He's 10 years old. He's going to be 11 next year. But my thought is that this information needs to be in school. The same way you're in health class teaching us about puberty, you should be talking to boys and girls about mental, emotional, and spiritual health. You should be talking to them about the condition of what it means to be human. It's natural. So there's no reason to be feeling like, as a little boy, we should stop the nuances of telling boys don't cry. Suck it up. Like you said, it starts with them being babies. It's hard to break a generational curse. I get it. It's hard
yes,
to break societal and cultural curses or just ideas, but it's possible.
it
Someone
is.
starts it and we continue it. So I always hold space, especially again, I want my son to know what that means now, so that he's not a man that is unable to express himself. He's in that he understands, like I just shared with the gentleman I was speaking with last night. Every feeling you have is still natural. But unfortunately, the world has assigned some negative connotation or energy or information to it. It's okay to be angry. That's a natural human response. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to cry. It's okay to want to hug. It's okay to want someone to smile at you. These are natural parts of the human experience. So why not let us just say it's okay for you to do that and let them be who they want to be in that moment. Don't let everything be predicated on what they're doing. Everyone is here. Notice what the word is. It's not saying we're human doings. It always says we're human beings. But no one's allowed to be exactly who they are. And that's because of all these constraints that we've created that no one even can make sense of. But this is what we're all following. This is what we're all making assumptions and creating expectations off of. And none of that information belongs in the space of who we are as spiritual beings having this human experience. None of that is natural. We have to get away from that.
Yes. No, it's so true. I'm so glad that you said that because it's so important for us to just allow ourselves to be, and knowing that we don't really have to strive to do all these things that society tells us to do, especially when it comes to the conception that people have of success, right? Success is just getting through the day. You know what I mean? Getting through the day, acknowledging your breath, recognizing that being here is a gift, and that when you're able to recognize that you're all that you need internally and physically, you're able to operate on a higher vibration of that love that
Absolutely.
Lovenia is talking about. And it's not an easy thing to do, especially because we're so conditioned, and we're, even though we're born perfect, oftentimes when we're born through through that birth canal, right, we are literally born with all these generational conditionings that were brought on from generation to generation culturally. And it really is
Right.
up to us through our experiences to be able to become self-aware, in order for
Absolutely.
us to recognize that just being and loving and serving is our divine assignment, and
Yes.
we don't need to be anything more than that, right? It's
Right. That's it. As hard as that is, but it's that simple and that complex, right? At the same
it
time.
is it is so complex. And you know what, it's so interesting that you brought up the imposter syndrome, because I will tell you that that is something that I personally have struggled with for many years, because of the fact that I've experienced personally a lot of traumas too. I've made a lot of dumb decisions through my journey. And I'm like, well, who am I to be talking about this? Well, that's the thing, is that the more that you experience and the more that you do this work every single day, because I will tell you, I'm right there with you. I'm doing this work every single day. I'm unlearning, learning, reconditioning, and just
Right.
activating and recognizing that I'm just like you, a human representation of God in human form. And the more that we accept that about ourselves, right? The more that we accept that about ourselves, the more we can operate in authenticity. And that is my goal, to be able to authentically connect with people, to be a representation of that love, just like you are emanating every single day. And I really appreciate I
Thank you.
appreciate that so much. I
It's
appreciate
hard
that so
work.
much.
It's hard work.
It is hard work. So how do you stay relevant, unique, and true to who you are as a person every single day?
Um, Again, I honor myself first and foremost and always, but the way I do that is always with grace, it's always with love, and it's always with the biggest amount of compassion I can have for myself in the moment. Because I had to learn like that I'm not supposed to be judging myself. I'm not supposed to be questioning my existence here. I'm not supposed to be doubting, the level of, doubting my value in this space. Because again, the only relevance of me being here, that information was given through, like you said, we were agreed in that in a contract before I was even brought here. So it's not up to me to undo that. So for me, I let myself be human, right? Because the reality is that's the physical realm that we're in. We're here on this planet. We have to be here in the physical, and we have to be here as a human being. So I just let myself be that. Like there's no like rhyme or reason. I don't schedule out being in love with myself, Life just happens. I tell people I allow myself to be loyal to the moment and not to the people or places that are connected to the moment. And that's because that's the only thing that's true and relevant right then. The moment comes and it goes, and that happens how many times in a day, how many times in a week, how many times in a month, a year, in our lifetime. So that's what I allow myself to do. Be loyal to the moment and what I know to be true and present about who I am based on what God told me I am. And that's it. However that looks, who knows? Some days it looks great, some days it feels wonderful, but there are moments where it doesn't feel so wonderful and it may not look so great, but I still honor myself in those moments. So it's just always that. Again, I say that I'm an over the top self love advocate. It's always that whatever's happening, I'm honoring myself in some way, shape, or form that is reflective enough for people to see what God is through me. That's all I do.
That's good.
Maybe
And
I'll
that's a
write a
day.
book about that one day.
Yeah, no, yeah, you should. Well, this book, I highly recommend that every single one of you who is watching this, and I'll put the link to the information for you to be able to order this, because it's so relevant in the day that we are living in today, and the new earth that we're going to be stepping into in this upcoming year. Because if we do not do the heart work individually, we are not going to be able to continue to reflect what we just talked about, how we are a human representation of God in human form. And whatever God means to, it is a higher power. It's an omnipotent, omnipresent power that continuously resides in everything that we experience externally, internally. But until we recognize that about ourselves, and until we continue to see ourselves, right, when we look at ourselves in the mirror and see ourselves with absolutely no judgment, and recognizing that we have that ability every single day to activate our heart, to be able to activate that love so that we can actually extend that out to people. We're not going to be able to change the world. We're not going to be able to perceive it in the way that we should be perceiving it, because although there is so much negativity happening, in reality, it's historical. Like, these events have been happening for generation upon generations, but where focus goes, energy flows. What are you focusing on?
Right. Love and light.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's not always going to be like second to second. It's not always going to be love and light. But when we recognize that it's a continuous work, we are able, again, to perceive that more from a higher vantage point, and recognize that we do have the capacity to experience more love and light each and every single day. Now, what practices do you implement to stay grounded and divinely connected to yourself and your creator? So what are the specific, what is your specific routine on a day-to-day basis, or any practices?
Routine sounds scary. But there is something I do like to say: practice, because practice makes us better, right? I don't believe there's this thing called perfection other than when we were born here. But there are some practices that I enjoy very much, and that's, of course, meditation. And another big one for me is journaling, specifically writing in my gratitude journal. That's the first thing that very quickly brings me back to the space of love and light and what God is. Because gratitude is like, I like to say that gratitude is like the leverage we get to utilize to bring forth everything God wants to happen for us, right? So I like to make sure that no matter what I'm doing, I'm creating some space of natural karma to make sure that God and the universe will still align everything in my favor for me to continue to do this work. The way I have to do that, I have to sit still with myself. And I say meditate because people, you'll hear people say a lot that they pray a lot. Prayer requires a lot of communication, a lot of talking. I prefer, my preference is, I talk a lot in my human space. So I don't talk a lot when I'm meditating. Meditation allows me the opportunity to listen to the information that God and my ancestors and the stars and the universe want me to receive. I can't do that if I'm talking. And then, like I said, after that, if there's anything else that I want to communicate for me to stay grounded, I do that through gratitude.
That's good. That's so good. And I'm glad that you talked about the difference between prayer and meditation, because a lot of times people don't recognize that difference. And the prayer is the conversation, conversation that you have with your higher self, God. And then the meditation is really just the tuning in of your personal space and just allowing that voice to speak to you.
Absolutely.
So beautiful. That's such a beautiful practice to have. And do you have a specific time of when you do gratitude or when you do prayer and meditation?
Of course, naturally, I wouldn't say a specific time, but I find that it works well if I do that in the earlier parts of my day. So meaning when I first wake up, like if I do that in the morning, preferably after I get the opportunity to open my eyes, the sooner I do it, the better. The better that aligns the moments that are coming for me throughout the day. But there are times where, just depending on the energy of the world that we're living in, I require that energy more than just in the morning. So there are times when I'm writing in my gratitude journal in the evening before I go to bed, or sometime during the middle of the day, because again, for me, gratitude is that first place I go, which is why I talk about that being the self-love trifecta. That's the first reinforcement after forgiveness in the space of what we have to do in heart work, because that's the quickest way to realign yourself back to that space of something that's healthy, that's flowing, that's understanding, that's compassionate. Because typically when you're practicing gratitude, there's very little space for you to be negative when you think about it, right? There's no way to be so positive or to be assigning yourself information about energy that's so positive, and at the same time you can be thinking all this negative stuff. So I just feel like any time of the day is a great time to practice gratitude. Sometimes that is needed more than once a day, but the best moments I have happen after I've practiced that time with myself of practicing gratitude. And I do that through writing. And I always will do that through writing, because there's something very unique and systematic, and I guess psychologically, that happens with your mind, your body, and your spirit when you write things down, as opposed to just speaking them. Because sometimes for me, the gratitude is a very sacred practice. It's not for the rest of the world. It's for me and God in our conversation and our understanding with each other. So I just like to take the opportunity to just kind of, I guess, put some additional emphasis on it, because I feel it in my heart, but it still needs to align with the human form that I'm in. And that's why I write in my gratitude journal.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. And it really is, it's almost like a contract that you're writing when you write it down. And it's a really great way to reflect back as to
Yeah.
where you were in that space. I don't know about you, but I like to date and time. A
Oh,
lot of
yes,
times, yeah,
absolutely. Date
date
and
and
time,
time.
day,
And I write,
time, and the day of the week. Like I always write, like if it's 11/8 and it's Tuesday, I put Tuesday, this month, this day, and this time. I absolutely do that.
yes.
It
It's
matters.
such a great, yeah, it does matter. And it's such a great to even track your evolution and not
Yeah,
necessarily go back to, because it really allows you to go back to that history and
yeah,
not to live in that history in a negative way, but to go back to that
right.
history and be like, wow, I have definitely evolved. And I'm
Yeah,
so grateful that I have been able to I've been tracking this evolution from day
absolutely.
one. And day one can be today if you
Right.
have never been a person to track your gratitudes or your intentions. Can you give us an example of an affirmation that you would use? Because I know you have affirmations in your book, but what is a really good affirmation that you would use to implement daily forgiveness and grace?
I am love. That's always my first affirmation, because love encompasses all of that, right? If you really believe in what God is, then you have to know internally, especially in your heart space, that that's real. That everything that you do, no matter what happens in the moment, it's possible that you may do something that's not in full alignment. But when that happens, you give yourself grace. Because I always say that really what love is, if you need to have an explanation of that, it's unconditional acceptance. That's all it is. All unconditional of acceptance of everything that's most natural and authentic to who you are. Again, though, based on the character of your heart. That's all that is. There's no like, it has to be this specific thing. Just know that you have to look at yourself the way God sees us all. There is no judgment from God. There's no criticism. There's no unhealthy criticism, I'll say, but there's always very constructive criticism, right? There is a difference. There's no name calling. There's nothing that's unhealthy that's going to actually contribute to you going back into the darkness, if you consider what love really is, right? So in that, I just do that. I'm always like, I am love, because if I don't say that, it's a possibility that I'll go into a space that's dark. And I love that you said historically that what we're seeing now, this is not a time that's never happened before. But what also is historical, though, is that love and light always wins.
Mhm.
So it may feel right now, just because of what we're experiencing, what's being filtered through to us, that the darkness is winning. It's not the case. That's a highlight reel. The reality is, no matter what, love and light will always win. You just have to choose if you want to stay in the darkness or if you want to be part of the light. Is that an easy choice? Absolutely not. But I promise you, the more you choose the light, the more you're going to continue to choose the light. It's always a choice.
So true. So true. And you've already, oh my gosh, you've already like blessed us with so many nuggets of wisdom. But I want you to answer this question specifically. What words of wisdom would you give to those seeking a deeper understanding of themselves?
Trust the information you discover about yourself.
Hmm.
Because sometimes we don't want to do our hard work because we're afraid of what we're going to learn about ourselves. We're afraid of that part of ourselves that we've been trying to hide, or that we've been hiding from the rest of the world. But the reality is, in those moments when it's just you and God and all your nakedness and naturalness of being human, there are things that you're going to discover about yourself that are not things that you may want to share out loud. So in that space, just always, always just trust that the information that you're discovering about yourself, that it's true and that it's relevant and that it matters to the condition of your heart.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I really value that, even taking that in for myself, because through these conversations, you will recognize that every single person that is coming through these doors are so unique, so different, yet we are all the same. We are all looking to experience more love. We're all experiencing, well, we all desire to experience a higher purpose. We're all seeking to experience more authenticity within ourselves so that we can then in return give that to the world that surrounds us, right? And
Yeah.
I'm really grateful because these conversations have blessed me more than ever before. And it really inspires me to continue to do this work, to be able to create a space for people like Lovenia, Coach Love, to be able to continue to spread the word, to spread the love, to spread the wisdom, to spread the knowledge that they have gained through their own personal experiences. Because regardless of what you're going through today, whether you're living in a very dark space, there's always a greater opportunity to look at things from a higher vantage point and to recognize that your dark experience that you're going through right now, that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and there's a lesson that needs to be learned through that experience. And it really is divinely connected to your greater purpose. And when you're able to see that, the quicker you're able to close the gap on that dark experience that you're having and to switch your perception on what is happening, you're able to shine a light of hope and faith and trust to people to know and recognize that you have a specific DNA code, that you are here for a reason, and that you too can experience the love and light each and every single day that you are here on this planet. And it's such a gift. It is such a gift to be able to experience life on planet Earth. Planet Earth is the most abundant planet in the universe. We have the most brilliant souls roaming this planet. We have billions of cells that activate our brain every single day, and we have the capacity to switch it on so that we can experience life from a higher vantage point and to experience the abundance. And it doesn't even have anything to do with money or material possessions. And it has everything to do with your perception of what is happening and how you can see, literally, you can walk out into nature and recognize that just by being able to do that, you are extremely wealthy and abundant.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And I want to say, what you're creating with these conversations, I love that it's cultured society, it's culture talks. But I want everyone to get that what we're emanating through these conversations is what a cultured society is. And all that is love. Unconditional acceptance of everything that's authentic about what the experience is meant to be like here in this realm. That's all it is. I think the more conversations you continue to have with people that are excited about being beings of light and love and understanding and compassion, the more we have the opportunity to be, like you said, this cultured society. Our culture now needs to be love.
Yes. Yes. And this is really the whole purpose behind this platform, because through the experiences that I've personally have had, I've been able to live in different parts of the nation and travel different parts of the world, have hundreds of thousands of conversations with colorful souls that maybe
Right.
look a little bit different than me in the exterior, but when you really sit down and exchange
Right.
energy, you recognize that we're all the same. We
Yeah.
have very similar components that
It's so
make up our
beautiful. It's
human
so beautiful.
humanity. It is. It is so beautiful to recognize that we can look at each other and literally be a mirror of each other, learn from each other, activate each other, up level each other, inspire each other, motivate each other to continue to walk in our specific DNA code, in our specific divine purpose. So I'm so grateful that if you vibed with us today, that you continue to vibe with us in these conversations. You have a variety of colorful soul you can learn from on this platform that are just going to continue to inspire you to be you, to
Yeah.
be you, because you are so special. You have such a special place on this planet. And the more that you continue to realize that and accept that about yourself, the more that you're going to be able to experience the abundance that this world has to offer. So with that, I leave you. I bless you. I send you so much love and light. And I'm consistently exchanging this energy with you. And again, Lovenia, thank you so much for joining me. You have been such a blessing to myself, and you're going to continue to be a blessing to all those that surround you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm sending you the same in return. Always much peace, love, and light to you as well, Rebecca. And thank you again for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Until we meet again,
Absolutely.
blessings.